We've got it. All right. Then if there's nothing else we need to do, I'll call the meeting to order. This morning, this lovely morning, October 12th at 10:01 a.m., our governing quarterly board meeting. Beth, will you do the roll call?
Sure. I'll go by library name. If you can state first and last name, please. Algonquin.
Sarah Murray Algonquin.
Carrie.
Mona Reynolds.
Crystal Lake.
Becky Fiolic.
Displains.
Joe Bonell.
Ela.
Lauren Rosenthal, present at TCS.
Evanston. Come back. Fox River Valley.
Amy Dodson.
Thank you. Fremont.
Did you?
Sorry, Scott, I didn't hear you. There we go.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's okay. Glencoe.
Andy Kim.
Glenview.
Lindsay Dorfman.
Grays Lake.
Tim Longo.
Highland Park.
Heidi Smith.
Huntley.
Frank Novak.
Indian Trails.
Ryan Shepherd.
Lake Forest.
Catherine Lemmer.
Lake Villa.
Mick Jacobson.
Lincolnwood.
Josephine Tucci.
McHenry.
Leslie Jakacki.
Morton Grove.
Tom Leffler.
Niles, Maine.
Cindy Rademacher.
Northbrook.
Kate Hall.
Palatine.
Jeannie Dilcher.
Park Ridge. Park Ridge.
He was on earlier.
Okay. Prospect Heights.
Alex Big Slick Todd.
Round Lake. Wilmette.
Anthony Austin.
Winnetka. And Zion Benton. Anyone I missed? I don't see anything in the chat. And for CCS, we have Rebecca Malinowski, Deborah Wishmeyer, and Beth Stoneburner.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Okay, then we'll move on to public comment. Lauren, you have anybody there with you making public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Jeannie Dilcher. I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
And this is Kate Hall. I'll second.
Thank you, Jeannie and Kate. Beth, could you please take the vote?
Sure. Algonquin.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Crystal Lake.
Yes.
Displains.
Yes.
Ela.
Sorry, yes.
Evanston. Fox River Valley.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Glencoe.
Yes.
Glenview.
Yes.
Grays Lake.
Yes.
Highland Park.
Yes.
Huntley.
Yes.
Indian Trails.
Yes.
Lake Forest.
Yes.
Lake Villa.
Yes.
Lincolnwood.
Yes.
McHenry.
Yes.
Morton Grove.
Yes.
Niles, Maine.
Yes.
Northbrook.
Yes.
Palatine.
Yes.
Park Ridge. Park Ridge,
We see you,
Prospect.
Joanna, but we're not hearing your vote. I
she just
see,
entered into the chat. No, Joanna, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Sure, sorry.
Prospect Heights,
Yep.
Round Lake,
Yes.
Wilmette,
Yes.
Winnetka, and Zion. Okay, thank you.
okay, motion carries. We'll move on to the business section of our meeting today. This is really exciting, moving into potential members. Thank you so much for presenting, distributing the information about the Warren Newport membership on which we're taking action today. I first would ask Rebecca if she has anything to add, and then we'll entertain any questions.
No, I would just say in talking with Ryan at Warren Newport and all of his staff, they seem on board and they understand, kind of what they're getting into, the benefits, and also the changes that they would experience as a consortium library. So we don't have any concerns in our office. Happy to take questions.
Seeing none, the executive director recommends approval of the Warren Newport Public Library membership. We would entertain a motion at this time.
This is Brian, so moved from Indian Trails.
This is Pam from Morton Grove, second.
Excellent. Beth, would you take the roll call?
I'll start with Indian Trails,
Yes.
Lake Forest,
Yes.
Lake Villa,
Yes.
Lincolnwood,
Yes.
McHenry,
Yes.
Morton Grove,
Yes.
Niles, Maine,
Yes.
Northbrook,
Yes.
Palatine,
Yes.
Park Ridge,
Yes.
Prospect Heights,
Resounding yes.
Round Lake,
Yes.
Wilmette,
Yes.
Winnetka, Zion.
Yes.
Let's see, Robin. Thank you, Robin. Algonquin,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Crystal Lake,
Yes.
Des Plaines,
Yes.
Ela,
Yes.
Evanston, Fox River Valley,
Yes.
Fremont,
Yes.
Glencoe,
Yes.
Glenview, Glenview, Grays Lake,
Yes.
Highland Park,
Yes.
and Huntley.
Yes.
Checking the chat. Okay, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is for potential members, Mount Prospect Public Library. Thank you for the update in the packet. Anything you would add, Rebecca?
Yes, I did just meet with Sue Reinders yesterday to go over timeline and potential billing scenarios, et cetera. So it does at this time seem very unlikely that they would choose to move forward with Warren Newport. So we would be looking at an October 2024 go live for Mount Prospect, and we'll talk more about that at executive committee in the coming months. And they are planning to present to their board as early as this November or this December.
Okay, excellent. Does anyone have any questions for Rebecca about potential membership? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the audit and annual report. These documents were sent separately. the potential motion that Rebecca has included is that the governing board accept the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 audited financials and annual report as presented.
Lauren, so moved.
Thank you.
Pam, I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion?
I'll just comment as the CCS treasurer this year, I read through it thoroughly, made a tiny tweak to the MD&A. You might have noticed there was a GASB change on how leases are accounted for. And there was a note that while we had rent expense in the previous year, we had no rent expense in the current year. And that's because it's now booked as a short-term liability. So it was just kind of further up on the same worksheet, but it was all in there and it looked great. Love Lauterbach and Amon. Well, and this was this is volunteer, but Lauterbach and Amon takes care of all the financials all along, and then Paul did a great job with getting this together. So yeah, it was wonderful.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Beth, will you please call the vote?
I'll start with Ela,
Yes.
Evanston, X River Valley,
Yes.
Fremont,
Yes.
Glencoe,
Yes.
Glenview,
Yes.
Grays Lake,
Yes.
Highland Park,
Yes.
Huntley,
Yes.
Indian Trails,
Yes.
Lake Forest,
Yes.
Lake Villa,
Yes.
Lincolnwood,
Yes.
McHenry,
Yes.
Morton Grove,
Yes.
Niles, Maine,
Yes.
Northbrook,
Yes.
Palatine,
Yes.
Park Ridge,
Yes.
Prospect Heights,
Yep.
Round Lake,
Yes.
Wilmette,
Yes.
Winnetka, Zion Benton,
Yes.
Algonquin,
Yes.
Cary,
Yes.
Crystal Lake,
Yes.
and Des Plaines.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Next is Vega Discover, which we received an update email. I do see, Rebecca, that we have an action included on the agenda, but that in the packet, this is based on your recommendation is revisiting this question in January. I'd like to turn it over to you to give us a little bit more context about what we need to accomplish today, and I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, so originally, when I wrote the agenda and sent the packet and wrote the first draft of the packet, to be very transparent, I had expected that we would recommend to governing board that we drop the program today and that governing board vote and say we're done with Vega. And if and when CCS wants to move off of PowerPack, we will, look at Vega as well as BiblioCommons and Aspen and whatever else may be in market at that time. The day that on Thursday of last week, so when I'm prepping to send out the packet, we had our follow-up meeting with Innovative, and based on history, honestly, I expected them to have a whole lot of nothing for us at the meeting, but it was actually really productive. And they had made some really important strides on the things that we were waiting for that we had previously felt kind of like brushed off on. So I pulled it from the packet and have spent, the last 5 days thinking about what I want to recommend to the committee and what we need to do today. So what I would like to see today is I would like to give you a little bit more context about the program and kind of where we are, what we've accomplished so far, and what potentially remains to be done. So that would be like, I don't know, 5 minutes of me. And then I do want Deborah to show you all Vega. And essentially what I'll be asking is, can we kick the can again and give the new director of the product a chance to perform? Essentially, she's been accomplishing a lot in the few months that she's been with Innovative. And like the next 3 to 6 months are going to be really important for CCS development. Essentially it doesn't hurt us to continue, and we don't need a vote for that either, but I'd like you to get a better understanding. So that is what we're looking at today, Heidi. Does that help?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Okay. So we have been involved with the Development Partner Program since September of 2020. And at that time, we had planned that we would be going live in 2021 at some point, maybe early 2022. As you can see, we are not. When we signed up for the program, we had sort of multiple goals. The first was, of course, to see if this product would meet our needs. Like, we're not paying anything for Vega. We have a test instance. We can play around with it. Like, is this going to work for consortia? Because discovery for consortia is really hard. There's not a perfect product. And this was an opportunity for us to really vet this program as it's being developed, but also a chance for us to advocate for consortial needs. Most customers that these vendors work with are standalone libraries. So when they're thinking about how to develop a product, they're thinking about standalone libraries. And as a member of the partner program, it was really our goal to push for consortia needs, both for CCS specifically, but also for the greater library community. And I would say we've been really successful with that. The changes that we've made, that we've seen implemented, have been positive. And then these development features that we're going to talk about today, I think that these are really important for consortium customers. E-content management is just a huge beast for CCS and others. Holds are, of course, a big deal, and moving to this roll-up model really changes the way patrons interact with material when they're placing holds. And then staff user management is really an internal thing for CCS and for your staff members. But as we have more and more emphasis on security and more passwords and logins and everything for individual staff members to manage, this was really important for us as well. I have included in the packet that I sent out just this morning a full list of what we call the blockers for CCS. So, this is just sort of like a bullet point list, and it's a summary of the features that CCS staff identified as being required for us to soft launch with beta libraries. So to, test with patrons and see how things work. And then a separate category for blockers that we can't go live with. So we could soft launch and we could do some testing and we could get some more data, but we can't go live until this other set of blockers is complete. So a lot of them are, I don't want to say unimportant, but they're smaller, maybe more cosmetic. It's focusing on parity with PowerPack. But these ones that I've called out in the document I sent out just this morning and that we'll talk about today are a big deal. So I want to talk through them so you understand where we're at and where we're going, and to some extent how this compares with our current system and with other products. Consortium scoping is, or collection site scoping in Vega parlance, but we'll just say scoping for our needs, is the ability for libraries and or patrons to limit to say, I just want to look at what my library has, or I want to look at what everybody has. And in Power Pack right now, we accomplish that with these drop-down limits that we have like pre-populated the parameters for, and patrons can say, search all members or search some members. And what we have found in our user testing is that the majority of users that we've done this testing with, if the default is set to search local holdings only, so if I'm Heidi at Highland Park, and my catalog says just search Highland Park material, the majority of users that are using the catalog change that button to say just search Highland Park to search all member libraries before they do their search. And that, is in line with what we see as a major benefit for consortium membership. Of course, you want to see all these millions of things that you have access to. So right now, the way that this is set up in Vega is that that's a setting on the back end. So CCS would set up for each library if the catalog is going to search just Highland Park stuff or search everything. So we've set that up to search everything, and then patrons would have to use a facet to limit. And that's less than ideal for us because we know patrons don't like facets, they don't use them. And this particular facet in Vega, as it exists right now, is not great. So for us, this is not, technically this blocker has been met because consortium scoping exists, but this is something that we would really like to press innovative on to make it more usable for patrons based on the information we have. So if we continued participating in the program, we could help ensure this feature would be more robust. E-content, any discovery system that we move to would handle e-content differently than we handle it in Power Pack. Within Power Pack, we're pulling that e-content directly from the Polaris database. That's all imported into Polaris and then displayed in the catalog. And for us, that import process has been an ongoing source of trouble, essentially, whether it's with the Overdrive API, like whether it's with the vendor side or the Polaris side. We've had problems with that integration. And while Innovative is working to resolve it, it's just a lot of content hitting that main database that, if we were on Vega or any other discovery platform, that would almost certainly be pulled in through the API directly into the discovery platform as opposed to being stored in Vega. The nice thing about Vega is that it would, because it's a direct product, it would give us a little bit more flexibility on if we wanted to work with that metadata and adjust it or not, or if it just came directly in from the vendor and lived in Power Pack. The good news is that we have a successful test with Overdrive. The initial import took about 20 minutes rather than several days, which was just amazing. Deborah just turned that on yesterday. So that was one of the pieces that we were going to say, look, e-content doesn't work. We're going to drop this program. We're not here for it. And they're like, no, wait. So Deborah was able to do a successful test yesterday. And as it's set up, it would be a lot more efficient for us than our current system. So our soft launch blockers with the addition of that e-content are essentially met that we could start soft launching with beta libraries. There are 2 pressing go live blockers that have not been met yet. And one is due out in December. And that is we're calling it holds logic, but it's really the bib selection logic. So what you'll see when Deborah demonstrates is multiple editions are rolled up into one display. And so that means that those individual records are sort of hidden from patrons. So when a patron says, get me that Harry Potter book, they're not picking, give me the hardcover, give me the paperback. They're just getting the Harry Potter book. So Vega is deciding which record to place the hold on, and then that hold is sent out to Polaris, and then the holds logic in Polaris, prefer my patron, et cetera, goes into play. So the changes that we're pushing for is for that selection process to consider essentially the logistics of holds, and like, we're not going to ship something back and forth if it's sitting right in the library and can get pulled. So that is due out in December. And after several discussions, like it seemed, 2 weeks ago, it seemed like they were only going to fix half of the problem. And now they're going to address the whole problem and take into account drive-up windows and curbside branches and things of that nature. So they've enhanced their plan development, and it's slated for December of 2022. And then the final component that I'll talk about before I turn it over to Deborah to show you the product is staff management. So as you all know, we require individual logins for any access that involves patron data, and that is a security issue. We don't want Heidi's Highland Park CERC login password 123 to be perpetually available to folks who no longer work at Highland Park. So we've moved to this individual login, and we've spent a lot of time and energy, and our staff have made these big changes. And then Vega was like, oh, well, you need to log in with a staff library card to do all these separate things. And it was going to be 2 entirely separate staff user databases, which meant 2 logins for your team to manage. Which one do I need when? And honestly, just a ton of staff time for CCF that we were like, we can't do that. And this development is not due out until March of 2023. And I'll spare you a bunch of details, but essentially up until last week, they didn't have a plan for how they were going to address it. They'll just like, oh yeah, we'll take care of it before you go live. Don't worry about it. To which our response is, that's not good enough. Like, we need to see that you understand the problem and that you have like an actual plan in place. And they do, and it's a good plan. It'll query directly against the Polaris database. So if someone's removed from Polaris, they won't be able to log into Vega. We just have one set of usernames to manage. And there's like a simplified permissioning that would happen within Vega admin that CCS staff would have to do, but that seems really manageable for us. So the plan that they have in place is solid. We, heard it directly from the director of patron discovery, and we feel good about the plan. We wish it were coming out sooner, but March of 2023 would work with a potential timeline for us. So I'd like to stop talking about these sort of nebulous features that you can't see and turn it over to Deborah to show you what Vega looks like, kind of the good and the not so good, and to some extent how it compares with other products.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. But Beth, I think you may have to give me permission to do so. Oh, never mind. Here we go.
I thought I did it, but I would not have been surprised.
Okay. Rebecca, can you see the Glenview collection site?
Sure can. I see Glencoe. Yeah.
Glencoe. Yes. Geez, they're hard. All right, so hopefully on your screen you see the Glencoe collection site in Vega Discover. At first glance, you are probably thinking this is very simple and clean and bare bones. And I think that is one of the tenets of the development for Vega Discover is, again, just a really minimalist, simple, user-friendly interface and coloring. So as like not to clutter like visually the catalog for patrons. However, I will say that one of the items that they're working on right now is adding some like jazz and pizzazz to this interface. In the development queue is the ability to add carousels to this blank white space you see at the bottom, as well as full custom CSS for the header section, so that libraries can update the branding of Vega Discover to match, for example, their website. So that is coming either Q4 of 2022 or early Q1 of 2023. So Rebecca asked me to walk you through just a couple of sample searches so we can explore the interface together. So pretend I'm a patron looking for the Midnight Library. Once I type in the search and initiate it, we'll see our search results pop up here in the middle of your screen. And this first search result illustrates one of Vega's key features, which is format rollups. So instead of seeing separate results for each bib record appear in your search results list, Vega consolidates all of the different formats and records for a single title into one card. So here for the Midnight Library by Matt Haig, we see horizontally displayed within the title card each of the formats that exist in our database. We have the book, large print, audiobooks, which is actually Playaway, and then we have our e-audiobook and ebook display as well. So depending on which format the patron was interested in, they could toggle back and forth between each of these tabs to see if their preferred format is available. If it's not available, they could look and see what formats are available for them. Again, I am currently in the Glencoe collection site. And in this collection site, we have the display showing Glencoe as like the local holdings here. So hopefully you can see it's a little bit small. This is feedback we've given them. When you're in a format tab and you're in a collection site, you can see quite quickly whether or not that library has a copy available. So again, at Glencoe, we see that library name displayed here, as well as a green checkbox next to the library indicating that that library has a copy available. Now, if I want to see some more information about this specific item, such as where the item is on the shelf at Glencoe, I would click the library name and it would pull up this drawer that lists all of the Glencoe copies and the status of those copies. So we can see here, Glencoe has several copies of the Midnight Library. We have a few that are checked out or have a different status that's indicated by this red dot and the item status. And then if we scroll farther down, we can see that they also have 2 copies that are in and on the shelf. And this drawer displays the call number and the shelf location so that the patron can find that item on the shelf. Now, Rebecca had earlier referred to sort of this consortia scoping. So right now, this Glencoe collection site is set to prioritize Glencoe holdings, but still allow patrons to see holdings owned across the consortia. So that all consortia option is like found under this view all locations link here. Once a patron were to click view all locations, it would show the availability at all CSCS libraries, listing the libraries with available copies first, and then the libraries with unavailable copies at the bottom. So if a patron, wanted to swing by Displays on their way home, they could look at the available copies at that specific location. Just one thing to note, the call number is not displaying prominently on the search results page when I am not logged in. Now, if I were to log in with my Testa card, again, just a quick login option in the upper right-hand corner, typical for most discovery interfaces. If I log in, the display changes slightly. And Innovative has gotten a ton of feedback on how call number displays, and I do know that they're planning to make some changes to how it works. Once I log in as a Glencoe patron, I do see the call number displayed in the search results. Again, Innovative is planning to make some changes and tweaks to call number display. I don't quite know what the final vision is going to be at this time. So Rebecca had also asked me to just give you a quick comparison of how the rollups work in other discovery interfaces. So again, Vega when working correctly, you have all of the formats displayed horizontally within the same title card. It works a little bit different in BiblioCommons and Aspen. So I'm going to hop over to my home library catalog, which is the Franklin Park Library. They're part of SWAN, and they are on Aspen. So if I do the same search in Aspen, you can see that Aspen also groups all of the different formats together. They are displayed a little bit different. They're displayed vertically instead of horizontally. And Aspen doesn't group the editions together. And I'm going to show you an example of that in Vega in just a minute. So again, here's my search result for the Midnight Library. We see all of the different formats grouped together. They're displayed slightly differently in this vertical display. So we've got everything ranging from your large print to your e-content to your book format. Glenview is, or BiblioCommons is relatively similar to how Aspen groups the formats. So if I hop over to the Glenview Test BiblioCommons interface and search for the Midnight Library, we can see again a similar display to Aspen, where all of the different formats are displayed vertically within the same title card here, and a patron can select their preferred format, place a hold, view the call number, etc. And hopefully you followed me as I went to those different discovery interfaces and weren't just stuck on Vega. So I also want to show you an example of a roll-up that doesn't quite work the way we want it. The Midnight Library example I showed you is very clean. We have all of the formats correctly grouped together, but I'm going to do a test search to show you sort of where there's still some work to be done. So if I search for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, this is an example of like a not ideal search ranking here for this title. The first result in the list happens to be the video game, which I personally wouldn't expect. I would expect to see the book show up first. And then in the results page, we have several results for the DVD and Blu-ray. So we have one result here. We have a second result listed with the DVD and Blu-ray, and then we have a third before we get to the book, an audiobook version of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So this has to do with the roll-up logic that Vega uses to identify which titles are matches. You can see here, looking at a quick glance, they all have the same title. However, they have some different publication dates for these titles, which I would assume is preventing Vega from saying, hey, these are an exact match. So again, Vega is keying off of different fields within the record, such as title, author, subtitle, publication date. And if the MARC data converted to BibFrame doesn't quite match, Vega is like, nope, these aren't the same things. We can't roll them up together. So CCS has been giving Innovative a lot of feedback on the matching criteria to determine if records and titles should roll up together. But there still is, I think, some work to be done on improving that logic. One other thing I wanted to just show you in regards to the roll-ups is how Vega is consolidating multiple editions together. So if I look at the book version of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, you can see here in the result for this title, there is a link to edition information. Now, if I click that, it's going to pop me over to like a full display for this title. And I can see here that for this roll-up, there are 4 print editions being rolled up together. So we have a 2018 version, 2016, 2000, and 1999. So rather than display each of those editions as separate options for the patron, behind the scenes, Vega Discover is saying, like, these are the same things, even though like they were published in different years. We don't need to give each of these options to the patron. We're going to present them with a single book tab. They'll place the hold and we'll pick which record the hold is placed on based on availability at the patron's pickup location, etc. Some of the hold logic Rebecca had alluded to as part of our blockers. So that's a really nice perk of Vega. Again, you know, it's unlikely the patron really cares if it's the 2016 version or the 2000 version. So instead of sort of presenting them with a lot of options, Vegas just gives them the book tab. And then based on the holds logic, we'll choose which record to place the hold on. The patron, if they would like to, could also pick their own record. They have to dive a little bit deeper into the discovery interface to do that. Once a patron wants to place a hold, that process is pretty simple and pretty easy. If, for example, I would like to place a hold on Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, I would just click the place hold button. A window would pop up asking me which pickup location I would like to pick up my hold at. For Books by Mail Library, Algonquin, shout out, there is the option to have the patron select that option. A patron when placing a hold could also indicate that, like, you know, they need this item within a certain time period, and if it doesn't come in before that time period, they don't need it. But then once they confirmed their location, the hold would successfully be placed. So that's a very, again, quick overview of the searching process, how the format rollups work. I do want to just hop over really quickly to my account to show you what that looks like. There's two ways for the patron to arrive at their account. They can click their name up in the upper right-hand corner, or they can open their account using the bookshelf bar across the bottom of the page. Once I open my account, it's a very tidy and clean and I think visually appealing screen. The patron can navigate between their checkouts, their holds, any outstanding fines and fees, and then review their profile or their account information. In the checkout tab, again, the patron has the option to renew their items if they would so choose. Some of the items currently in development is to renew multiple items at the same time. That's development coming a little bit later this year. In this menu bar, the patron account menu bar, we also have a couple of other tabs the patron can navigate through. The bookmarks tab contains the patron's lists. So like Power Pack, a patron can make book lists. You can see I have my staff favorites here. I have a Rebecca Caudle book list. So the patrons wouldn't lose that ability to create book lists for themselves. Patrons can also build and save searches if they have a popular search they like to do. For example, looking at new fantasy books, they can build that search, save it, and then run it at any time right from their account. And then like Power Pack, patrons do have the option to store their reading history as well. That's viewable right from their account here. Okay. All right, Rebecca, anything else or anyone have any questions or anything else you would like me to walk through here? Okay, hearing none, I will turn it back over to Rebecca to continue with her presentation.
Thank you, Deborah. I turned off my video. That was very helpful. I always like to see a Vega demo because I'm not involved as I used to be, so I appreciate it. So I just want to wrap up by saying that, you know, I joked with Deborah that I feel like Charlie Brown kicking the football. Alex left. I'm like, Alex will know about Charlie Brown. And I'm like, are they really going to develop the thing they said they're going to develop? I don't know. And what I came down to is essentially right now, it does not hurt us to continue with this program. We have not committed any financial resources. Deborah has pulled back on the staff time she spends on the program. So, before there was a lot of like very active planning and like, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and communicating with our beta libraries. And we've, pulled back on that and said, we're just going to watch development. We're going to provide our feedback. I think we're not in a position where we need to make a decision on like, we're going to use discovery option A or discovery option B. PowerPack is working for us. We have, as we just talked about, some really big projects coming up. My concern is, I don't want to bring Warren Newport on and then like 3 months later be like, just kidding, we're changing your interface. But I think we have time in our timeline right now that if, in December that development comes out and we really like it and we revisit this in January and we're like, yeah, we're really intrigued. Like, let's keep on keeping on. We could coordinate a launch into the Warren Newport project. Or if we're like, you know what, this is a cool product and we want to stick with it, but we're not ready yet, that's fine too. We have secured, they're doing a lot of deals on pricing right now. And so we have secured pricing from last year. The number of features that are included in that pricing has increased over the past year as they've done their development. So, including the program, we'd have to go back to the negotiating table if we did want to move forward with Vega in the future. I was like very convinced. I was like, we're going to drop it. Like, I'm annoyed. Innovative's wasting our time. But I do really strongly feel that the new director of the product, Kat Puff, is making great strides. She just started in March, and they had very high expectations for what she was going to accomplish in her first 3 months that even when they were saying, I'm like, no one could do that. No one could do that. And she didn't, but she did make really strong progress and has continued to, I think, be really impressive. So I'd like to give her a chance to see what she can do with the development team before we make a final decision, which is essentially why I've changed my recommendation. I'm happy to take questions. I know this was a long session, but we've been saying for months, we're going to show you Vega. We're going to show you Vega. So I wanted to show you Vega, and I really appreciate that demo, Deborah. Questions from anyone? Comments?
I love those tabs, that standardization, making it look like when you're shopping at Amazon and you can see all the formats. I had been like, oh, why would we want to change? But looking at that, that's really nice functionality.
I see Catherine Lemmer has a icon up.
My question is that I think I'd like to see in January some comparative pricing and timelines if we chose to go with another product, because we've been dragging on this for a very long time. I don't have the faith that you do. I've been in technology development. I don't see this coming together in a way that's meaningful. So I'd like to see cut the cord. We chose to go with another product, timeline and pricing to launch that kind of product. Because I think this is all, seems to me, we universally have a strong feeling that this is a product we'd like, a type of product we would like to offer our customers. And there are other functioning products out there, and you don't buy a product forever. You buy it for 3 years, and 3 years you can come back and look at Vega if Polaris has got their act, Innovative has got their act together. So that's just what I'd like to see.
Noted. Very fair.
I mean, remembering why we started this, the entire purpose was for us to be able to weigh in on the development piece. And this was the first time we were trying this. I think that I don't necessarily like, yeah, there's some nice features. There's also a lot of stuff, like any product we get is going to have issues. right? Like we find this out like, oh, we got to get away from Cersei. Cersei's evil. That's awful. It's awful. And Polaris, and I like Leap. I think it's fine, but every product has issues, anything we move to. So I think the question is, because like, I don't think Vega looks like okay, I see a lot of red flags, but like if we were going to go with something, I'd rather go with something that we've liked before, like BiblioCommons, and not have to think about it. Lindsay already did the work, so all of that prep work is done. But also the question is, do we need to actually move right now? The whole purpose of this was because we were going to be able to make something customizable and really, really useful for consortia. And that is not happening. So I would argue we're saying like, well, if not this, something else. No, if not this, we don't actually have to do anything. I know Power Pack isn't perfect, nothing is, but I also don't think that it is fundamentally broken. And so, you know, we're still at Northbrook. I don't know where everyone else is. We're still recovering from like being understaffed and not being able to plan and do shit. And I am okay with not adding a project to the list.
I really agree with Kate. You know, having lived through BiblioCommons, they look good today, but it's hard to say what they're going to look like when we actually onboard them. I think there's a lot of merit to staying with Power Pack and giving this another 6 or 12 months.
Yeah, I think that's a really important reminder from Kate and Jim. We don't have to make a change. For CCS, our continued participation means that our staff can continue this learning process that they've participated in, and that we can continue advocating for our needs and the needs of other consortia. It doesn't mean that even in 6 to 12 months we'd make a change. And it doesn't mean that we'd rule out making a change to anything else if we decided that's what we wanted to do. I think we'd certainly need to look at if we're like, you know what, we're not going to do Vega, and we should do a full RFP for a new discovery layer. I think we'd make that work with our schedule. Whereas right now we're just sort of like following this development, seeing what shakes out. And the only timeline pressure is, what do we do about, adding new members and not making anyone, like our existing project loads. So agreed, continuing with the program doesn't mean we'll use Vega starting in January or in 6 months or 12 months or whatever. It doesn't mean we won't. But that the ability to push for the development we need and that others need is beneficial. But yeah, I like Power Pack. I don't know.
Well,
Like
thank you.
sinking down the early adopter curve into something else.
Like it's all, none of it is going to have the resources that Google or Amazon, or like, we're never going to have that level of searching, even though we should. So I don't know. I guess I'm feeling a bit fatalistic about it.
Well, in terms of next steps, it sounds like Power Pack is better than Director Station. Great comment. Thank you. That's the plan moving forward would be to give it a bit more time, but then in January, if that's the opportunity to say, bring it back to governing board to say, wow, look at all the progress that's been made in 3 months. What do we want to do now? Is it time to, double down, or is it time to pursue other options? And I believe Catherine suggested bringing those other options to the January meeting, or Catherine, would you be amenable, and group, right? It's for everybody to kind of say, let's decide one way or another about Vega, next steps in January, and then consider other options in April? Or do you feel like January ought to be a time where we make a decision? There's also the option of, doubling down on Power Pack and not taking on another project at that time. But I think we need a clear instruction for Rebecca and her team about what we want in January.
I think the only decision we should make in January is, should we continue with Vega? Is it something that is now functional? Do we want to continue the process, stop the process, or actually it's functional enough that we decide, yes, we can move forward with enacting, implementing this. So I feel like the only question on the table should be Vega. And like Rebecca said, we would probably do like the RFP process for the other stuff.
Okay. Unless there's any further comment or question, that's our plan.
Yes, I just have one quick thought is, how do we make a decision on Vega if we don't exactly know what, at this point, how do you make a decision on Vega when it's the only option on the table? I mean, I'm just saying that seems to be what the January meeting is we're going to make a decision whether we're going to continue to carry the cost of staff time on this project, all of our time talking about it every quarter, or whether we're just going to say we're done and not think about anything. But I guess for me, I don't really understand the true cost involved with Vega if we do implement it. And that's all I'm saying, is that it's hard for me to say, dump it into the pool, unless we're dumping it into the pool simply because we don't think it doesn't work. And maybe I'm thinking about it the wrong way.
I mean, based on what I heard in the conversation here, I kind of feel like it's with Vega, we could be comparing what Vega will be with what Vega is currently now with other products. And I think that would be really tough. So if the first decision is at this point in January, at this point, the target has moved too far out. And you know, we would like to pursue other options sooner rather than later. So I think, you know, because we can't really compare what Vega will be eventually to other products, I think with much success, given that, you know, the timeline is changing. So if in January it's, you know, we're seeing good progress, but now we'd like to compare it with other products, that could be a decision that we make in January and move forward with. I think it sounds like the difficulty would be, do we start researching other projects while we're still hoping that Vega gets to where it needs to go? Rebecca, do you have any advice for us?
So in the doc, and again, I have absolutely no expectation that anybody read the document I sent this morning. It was really intended for like an after meeting review. I do include in that document a little bit of information about some potential benefits and challenges with Aspen or BiblioCommons, which are essentially our other options, assuming that we're like, we don't like PowerPack. But again, PowerPack is fine. It's not, you know, flashy and amazing, but it's functional and meets our needs. There is no perfect product for CCS on the market. So, I mean, like, I can get pricing, but I don't think that that would be the ultimate deciding factor. As Heidi said, with Vega, it's really about this like exploration and this like potential, which is staff time. But again, I think it's been beneficial for CCS staff, and I referenced that in this document as well. We have spent a lot of time on Vega at this meeting because I really wanted you to see kind of where the product is versus where it was a year and a half ago or 2 years ago when it didn't exist. I'm happy to do some preliminary research, but I feel like any serious discussion about like, is Aspen better than BiblioCommons? Let's just take Vega out of the picture for a second. Like, that's a really deep dive that I'm not super prepared to take on between now and January. And as Kate said, if we decide, what, this partner program isn't working for us, like this relationship building, this exploration's not worth it, we can drop it, stick with PowerPack, and then at our leisure and with our calendar determine if and when we want to do a deep dive into other products.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think it, even though it's a longer process than maybe some might hope for, to me that makes a lot of sense. Does that feel like a good strategy moving forward for the group? Let me know if there's something that we're missing. Okay. Oh, Catherine's got her hand up.
Rebecca, in the document you sent this morning, does it include the reference to the information regarding the reference you made in your presentation that you've negotiated some sort of potential fee around Vega? And if it doesn't, can you just shoot that to me?
Yes, I can send that to everyone. It's not in the document. We have that pricing since 2020, but I will send that out to everyone as well.
Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine.
All right, excellent. So we have a few more things on the agenda. Unless there's another question, we'll move on.
Heidi, it's Beth. I just wanted to note for the minutes that I was able to confirm Robin joined at approximately 10:09 and Heather confirmed she joined at approximately 10:30. So I just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Beth. Okay, so next on the agenda is TSIS pricing.
Oh boy, you guys. TSIS pricing. So I sent this out yesterday, a summary of what each fee is that is outside of those individual transaction fees. I think, as we might all expect, they're not going to talk in detail to me since I'm not an account holder. So we have our Mo is the name of our new business rep. So if we were bringing on a new library, we'd be working with Mo to set them up. So he is willing to submit a request for group repricing through his department. He has said he's not sure that it will go anywhere because of this TSIS Heartland, which departments which situation. But that if someone wants to authorize me to use their merchant account as I have to submit a merchant account ID with the request, that I'm happy to do that and try to work with him. The alternative, which may have to happen anyway, is that an account owner from each merchant account, so someone from each library, needs to call in. And I know some of you have tried calling them, so I apologize that this is not what you want to hear. That $45 analytics and reputation management program can be canceled at any time. So if you haven't tried to cancel that, go ahead and cancel it. Customer service was like, well, it was noted on their statement, so they should have canceled it before. But Mo was like, I heard that people have gotten at least a few months of refund on that. So you may be able to get some money back on that. Lauren is nodding. The same with this PCI non-validation charge. She couldn't talk to me. The customer service rep wouldn't talk to me about specific agreements, even though I was like, look, we don't have to do that. But Lauren did have some success getting that removed, refunded. Someone in your library theoretically should be getting an email annually that you need to complete the online survey about this through the credit card website, not through TSIS, but through the third-party security site. And I said, well, it seems unlikely that 28 libraries would all miss the same email for 3 years. So maybe there's a problem with setup. And she was like, well, I'm not responsible. But so again, she wouldn't talk to me about specific agreements, which I understand. But I think if we submit for the repricing and push either individually or as a group on this PCI stuff, we should be able to see some movement.
So you need specifically what piece of information?
I need a library to say, like, I need a group
Yes.
to say, yes, let's look at repricing and submit it as a group and see what happens. And then I need one library to say, you can use my merchant ID and
That was the term.
and I have your merchant IDs from your statements that you sent me.
You are
So-
welcome to use Northbrooks. So
Okay, thanks.
provided, I think that group pricing makes a lot of sense unless the group decides differently. You are welcome to use ours. Go forth, get us great deals.
Sounds like a great plan. Anything else on TSIS, questions or next steps?
I just wanted to add something. Once we got this email and we started looking at everything, we've been looking a lot at the use of our online payments for fees versus our self-check payments for fees. And removing some of these fees, getting we were being charged the PCI charge on 2 different accounts because they apparently couldn't tell that because we were PCI compliant on one, we should be PCI compliant on the other. So we're supposed to be getting some money back on that. So check that for yourselves. And then this analytics fee, which I think is totally bogus. We're working on getting that reversed too. That brings us into a much better situation, but we were spending a lot of money on our receiving online payments through the PowerPack. And we were paying way more than we were collecting there. So we were actually very strongly considering not even accepting payments through PowerPack anymore because our usage is like in the single digits per month of number of users. And I didn't know if anybody else has looked into that or if that was something that anybody else had considered. My understanding is that somebody could, like one of our patrons, if they had a lost book, they could, log in with their card on someone else's PowerPack and pay it. And then that other library gets the money. And I was 100% willing to let somebody else get our money. So we didn't have to pay for that account. But I didn't know if anybody else was finding similar statistics or usage.
We did the same thing at Morton Grove, Sarah, and we are coming to the same conclusion, pretty much that we got all of these different fees removed, which was great. And they were really willing to do it. We didn't have to really fight with them. So that was good. But even with that, we're still, like you said, we're getting just a couple payments, if that. So, I mean, we're still losing money on this whole thing. And I've talked about this with my circ manager, just disabling that altogether. So we're right at the same point, it sounds like.
So another option, which I could request pricing from our PELMO on, would be for CCS to have one merchant account that we could open another bank account or something like for CCS. And all of the libraries could use the CCS merchant account. And then, I mean, we'd have to talk with the accountant and probably our pal Paul, the auditor. But that income could just go into the CCS development fund or the CCS general fund or something. I haven't looked at how much you're each bringing in on that. I don't want to get into this was a Crystal Lake payment and this was a Carrie payment. So we're going to credit their invoices. I think that gets back to our terrifying quarterly billing mess that you may remember. But if these are really negligible amounts for you and we're, 28 libraries are paying 28 sets of fees, this is something we could look at centralizing if you are all comfortable with those funds coming into CCS, and that may be challenging for your board. So I would say as a next step that I submit for repricing and see how that goes, and if we can get some movement on that. And then in the meantime, you all can look at your income versus fees. And as Pam said, consider even, once these additional fees are removed, where does that leave you? If, all or most libraries are still in the red, we can look at another option. And you know, we have options that we can look at essentially. So.
I
does
would
that sound
say,
reasonable.
if what you're proposing where there'd be one merchant account from CCS and money would go into the development fund, if that would just be for Power Pack transactions, not
Yes.
self-serve transactions, then
Yes.
I think if the fees for having that merchant account came out of development fund, but then any fees collected went into development fund, I am willing to forego what we're collecting online to have that all be one centralized thing. I mean, it provides a convenience for our patrons, but you know, we talked about too, even if we break even, we're paying all the fees, but like, you know, people were paying, it was some staff stuff was on there, so we're getting rid of that. But like they were paying for summer reading t-shirts that way. Well, I mean, if we're breaking even, I'm covering my fees, but I'm not getting the cost for those t-shirts that we're supposed to be recovering. So breaking even doesn't even really get us to where we need to be. So I'm willing to forego what we're collecting for it all to go into one pot for CCS.
Yes, 100%. It would just be online payments. Stuff that's in library would be separate. Lauren.
So I would actually, I'm the opposite. We're trying to shift more stuff for payments through the Power Pack. We want to start taking passport payments for the library using credit card, and we would be using the Power Pack. We'd be using the web-based portal to do so, because using a passport generic library card makes an easy way to charge and collect funds. So we're looking at expanding that TSYS. And while we could open up a separate TSYS account, I just don't see, I would prefer not to. I mean, fewer TSYS accounts is easier. And for anything that is just a direct payment to the library, I'd rather just keep that separate. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm just curious because we do the same thing, but we use our self-checks for that. So we use a generic library card, and then people can go to the self-checks and pay because they're in the library doing those services anyway.
Okay.
So I'm just curious. I mean, we can talk about it offline, but I'm curious to know how our processes look different, and it's interesting to me.
Yeah, and thank you for those being leaders in this evaluative process. Thank you. Rebecca, anything else we need to cover on TSYS?
No, I will keep you posted via LibAdmin.
All right, great. Next on the agenda are our innovative updates. Rebecca, anything you'd add?
No, if there are any questions, Deborah will probably add them. Deborah, do you have anything else to add?
Just a quick update. As noted in the packet, we've had several service interruptions over the last month, specifically since upgrading to Polaris 7.2. 7.2 was designed to fix some of our e-content related performance issues, but introduced a sort of new set of problems that Innovative is aware of, monitoring, tracking, and so on. So again, we're working with Innovative to identify the root source of those recent downtime issues that we've experienced. CCS and Innovative are monitoring and tracking those issues and working towards a fix for them. So continue to remind your team if they experience any slowness or performance issues with the ILS to call CCS so that we can get them resolved as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Deborah? Check the other screen here. I don't see any hands. Nobody's jumping in, so we'll move on to the office lease project update. This is exciting, Rebecca. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited. We have narrowed down essentially to Tri-State International at this time. As noted in the packet, the floor plans that we received from the other buildings didn't meet our needs. So Beth and I are continuing to work with the real estate agent on some potential terms. After those are settled, then we would send it to the attorney for review, and then we would take it to executive committee prior to the January governing board meeting. So we're hoping for a proposal to you all in January so we can, hopefully have a great deal and a great lease. And then between January and June, prep and move into a new space. Questions about any of that?
I guess the only one that I would have is we didn't look at any towns that are current CCS members. I know we're in Arlington Heights and they're not, never will be a CCS member, but
Yeah, we did. I mean, so we started with a list of, like 60 buildings that we looked at, mostly in Lake County due to the lower property taxes. Sorry, Cook County friends. We narrowed down to these 3 buildings. Again, they're not in CCS libraries, but really on the basis of the buildings. We did tour some other spaces as well, including one that very near to us in Arlington Heights. But these very quickly rose to the top in terms of facilities, especially amenities for visiting members. The conference facilities are like very nice, and we can have, when we return and I stop wearing masks everywhere I go, we can have meetings in a beautiful conference room that CCS doesn't have to book out and take away from your summer reading programs.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then we'll.
Sorry, Heidi, just really fast. I had a comment from Diane that she wanted me to share about this. And I'm not all up to date on what's going on. So she said Riverwalk is most desirable distance-wise for those of us on the western edge of CCS. Anything further east skews the center more than it already is.
Yeah, that is true. So I am happy to share this stuff out as well. We did some mapping exercises with Cushman Wakefield. They mapped in terms of the CCS service area to these different buildings. In Lincolnshire, so Tri-State, which is our top space, is in Lincolnshire, which is sort of the furthest out of the 3. However, it is right on 294. So the actual drive, like while the miles may look more challenging, the actual drive time is really comparable, unless you're Beth, which I guess in Perry's case, you're Beth. So I do understand that concern. And again, we did look at buildings in a variety of locations. The Riverwalk conference space is, I would say, the least desirable of the 3. And their space plan bizarre. But yes, we are aware that it would certainly be a shift in driving for everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mona, for sharing the comment. Okay, and thank you, Rebecca and team for all of the work on this project. If there aren't any other questions or further discussion about this, we'll move on to reports. Clicking through and I don't see any yellow hands. Okay, President's report, no report. Secretary? So she's not with us today, correct?
Heidi, I can just mention that Scott had volunteered to serve as secretary for Diane, and the 2 of them spoke. So I'll be sending the minutes to Scott for review.
Excellent, thank you. Scott, we won't make you make a report. Treasurer report.
No report.
Okay, and our executive director.
Happy to take questions on my report in the packet or anything else.
All right, seeing none. Further comments or questions about our committees and groups reports? Okay, Unless anyone has anything else that we haven't covered yet. I'm clicking through. I don't see any yellow hands. Then we'll go ahead and unless there are anyone opposed, we'll adjourn the meeting at 11:20 a.m.